While protests rage around the U.S., one burning question remains. Should we build the wall that President Trump wants? Roger Stone, author of the New York Times bestseller The Man Who Killed Kennedy, is a legendary political consultant and confidant for President Trump. The subject of a new documentary, Get Me Roger Stone, he's described as a dashing, colorful artist of the underhanded. Former U.S. Marine Adam Kokesh is an outspoken American talk show host, political activist, and author of the new book, Freedom.
Hello, I'm Marcus Lloyd, and this is Truth Trial, the show where we put important issues of the day on trial so you decide the truth. Does it seem harder to wade through all that spin to figure out the truth? Well, you've heard of the court of public opinion, right? Well, this is it. Our question tonight is illegal immigration in the United States. Should the U.S. build a wall, as Donald Trump has suggested? Well, we have our two debaters here in studio to debate the topic. Please welcome Roger Stone, a political strategist and New York Times bestselling author, whose new book is The Clintons' War on Women. And his opponent today will be Adam Kokesh, a YouTuber and political activist and author of the book Freedom. Okay, it looks like Roger will be the one starting, and you will have 2 minutes for your opening arguments, and that will be followed immediately by 2 minutes from you, sir. And then after that, we will have an unmoderated 5-minute section of follow-up questions from both. And so now, let's let the debate begin. This is Truth Trial.
Thank you very much. Our current immigration system is badly broken. We have a porous border in the South. We have an immigration system that conducts no serious background check on the people who would come here. I and Donald Trump do not oppose an immigration system that actually works, in which people could come here legally for the promise of America. But to have a system in which we do not inspect has been a mistake. The problem of crime committed in this country by illegals is a legitimate crime. Now, some argue when you compare the number of people with the number of illegals who come to the country with the number of crimes they are responsible for, that the number is not large. I think that misses the point. The murder of one U.S. citizen by one person who is here illegally is one murder too many. Realistically, we can seal our border. This is an engineering feat that is much less challenging than the building of the Great Wall of China several hundred years ago. It can be done, but it is not to seal our borders for all people for all time. It is to seal our borders until such time that we have a system that allows us to examine the social media postings of those who apply to come here. If someone is saying on their Facebook page, Ali Akbar, death to all the Jews, I don't want them in America.
In order to understand the issue of borders, we first have to understand what government is. Governments are territorial monopolies on the initiation of force and violence, and borders are nothing more than imaginary lines drawn on a map to control freedom of movement and to give people a sense of national identity. The very concept of restricting freedom of movement is unethical. To say that you can't go from point A to point B because politicians drew these lines on a map and wars and circumstances of history created these restrictions, it is an anti-freedom position to say that we should have any control over free people's freedom of movement. It is anti-free market because it prevents free exchange across those imaginary lines. It imposes a form of taxes, regulations, and restrictions on free commerce that is essential to human progress, happiness, and cooperation. It is unethical, fundamentally, to say that you cannot do this. It is against the right of the individual to exercise their rights based on the fact that you, as a free, beautiful, independent human being, own yourself, and that is the source of your rights. The very concept of this is based on a collectivist idea that because we are a country or a nation, we have the right to do something that is unethical. But when it comes down to it, as individuals, we have no right to do something just because we come to a bigger group in order to do it. It's also a violation of private property. I'm all for borders, except they should all be defined by private property, not by this ridiculous collectivist illusion of nation states. So the government is not just the people who tax you and regulate you and tell you how to live your life. These are people who want to control you for the purpose of exploitation. So when Roger makes these appeals to fear and say, well, there's these negative consequences or these negative consequences. Says we need an immigration system that works. Who's it really working for? Certainly not you, certainly not me. But I would go a step further in what we talk about, what it means to be American. And if being American has anything to do with standing up against injustice, defying authority, and standing up for freedom and doing what is right, then the people who jump the border are far more American than most Americans today who would sit on the couch and turn to government, turn to the authorities, turn to the violent thugs in order to provide illegitimate services.
You know, that would work perfectly in a utopian society if we didn't have a human nature, but unfortunately it won't work. Unfortunately, in our society, there are people who will overpower other people and take what they have. Human nature is not such that everyone is good and everyone is a person of both morality and integrity. And therefore, I think Adam would tell us we don't need a police force, we don't need an army or a navy, we don't need a national defense. Citizens can defend themselves. It's a great concept. I agree with it in the laboratory. I think it's unrealistic. One only need to look at the videos of what's happening in Germany, in France, and across Europe, where you have mobs of young Islamic men raping women, children, killing people, killing men, destroying public property, destroying private property, defecating in public fountains in a rampage. Anyone who doesn't understand that that wave is coming here is unrealistic.
Well, what's actually unrealistic is the idea that government can do anything effectively. I mean, we've seen that over and over again. And even when it tries to do something like control freedom of movement in the sense of borders, it fails miserably. So to think that miraculously, all of a sudden, we're going to get government policy perfect and we're going to finally be able to achieve this one noble objective, that's utopian. But the idea of government itself is utopian. The idea, because exactly of what you said about human nature, that because people are bad, somehow we need to put some people in power. And then those people will magically not be bad. I don't see how that works. In fact, if anything, the idea that governments, as we have them today, are supposed to provide for security and for peace and prosperity, and that we should continue working on this system, and that finally, one of these days, we're going to get it right. If we just keep enough people out of this country, if we just elect the right people, that's utopian.
On the contrary, government has worked. In the 1920s, you had peace and prosperity. Laws were minimal. Government regulation was minimal. Taxation was minimal.
It worked for the bad people in charge.
In the 1950s, government worked. We had peace and prosperity. We had no federal deficit. Taxes were low. Spending was capped. Borrowing was non-existent. No, government can work, and it has worked. It has not worked in the last 30 years because we have had, despite the fact that there are two parties, we've had one governing philosophy, the New World Order, the neocons. That is our problem, not the idea that we could entirely operate without any government whatsoever. There are bad people in the world. They will take advantage of others. We elect those who lead us. We need a smarter electorate and better leaders, not the notion that we need no leaders at all.
No, we absolutely need to lead ourselves. That is how we move forward. That is how humanity progresses. It doesn't come from giving up our sovereignty to some ruling force. It doesn't come from giving up our rights to do that. And in the case of borders, what we have is you're saying, let's do this unethical thing. And I think you would even admit, you call yourself a libertarian, but it's not libertarian if you're taking an anti-freedom, anti-free market, anti-ethical position. Because libertarian means you believe in freedom as an ethical philosophy. The non-aggression principle, I own myself, therefore it's wrong to initiate force against me. And if you say like, well, yes, we're controlling freedom of movement, we're restricting people's ability to live where they want, to go where they want. In fact, you're talking about violating my property rights. I own a piece of land in Arizona. If I want to invite somebody onto my land from anywhere in the world, what right do you have to put a wall in our way, to say that you can't do that? And the entire premise of the argument that you've been making so far is an argument from practicality based on the fear of pre-crime. Someone might do something unethical, so we have to do something unethical to stop them. And somehow we're going to create an ethical society? Again, extremely utopian.
On the contrary, my arguments are based in reality. Who will protect the weak? Who will step forward for those who can't defend themselves? Who will step forward for those who don't own firearms?
Government does not protect the weak, it protects the elites.
It protects both in some instances. I would agree that the elites have led us in the wrong direction.
You want to talk about protecting the disadvantaged, you should be able to protect the rights of people who want to go where the work is.
You think everyone is good. That's your
No,
fundamental
absolutely
problem.
not.
So who will defend those who cannot defend themselves?
Well, don't you believe in the free market?
Yes, I do, but
So
I also believe
let's have private security.
that those with guns will kill those without guns. And how will that be redressed? How?
Oh, so like the problem that you mentioned about immigration in Europe coming from the American government sending people with guns like myself when I was in the Marines, it's okay, I'm better now, who went and terrorized those countries, who went and created those problems in the first place.
Yes,
it's
all of which
unethical people.
All of which I oppose. Thank
right,
you.
So
the Iraq War, all
again,
of which I oppose.
One
yes.
unethical position does not justify another. So you can't say
you're
because
trying to
of
live
this,
in a perfect world that just does not exist.
I don't think this is a perfect world that we're talking about. This is just about making it that much more ethical.
We have now reached the portion of our show where we continue with closing arguments for both of our debaters. And we'll start with Roger Stone, political strategist and New York Times best-selling author whose new book is The Clintons' War on Women. Roger?
Issues like immigration are on the forefront. The two-party duopoly, the Republicans and the Democrats, who have sadly morphed into one party, have given us a broken system that has given us endless war, erosion of our civil liberties, a broken immigration system, massive debt and spending and borrowing, a foreign policy that is both incoherent and extremely expensive, bailouts for the crooks on Wall Street while average people can't get jobs. And they seek to exclude the Libertarian and the Green Party candidates to this very important debate, implying to the people that they only have two choices when they have multiple choices. I am one who believes that our immigration system can be fixed by applying common sense, by being able to vet those and look at the social media postings of those who would come here. We can have a system that allows legal immigration. We are a nation of immigrants. We should respect that people, many people, most people want to come here for the hope of a better life, for the promise that could be America again.
It's not that we have a broken system. The system works exactly as it was designed to screw you to support the superclass, and it's working. And until you realize that we can overthrow the system, we can defeat it non-violently, we can wake people up to this, only then can we move past this paradigm. The system works for the people who designed it and the people who profit from it. This idea that we can somehow vet people, that somehow government, this great incompetent bureaucracy, is somehow, when it comes to controlling freedom of movement, to interfering with people's rights to decide where they live, where they work, and how they travel, somehow they're going to be competent, they're going to be able to oversee the system, and that somehow we as Americans really have some greater standard of human rights that we deserve that people in other countries don't, that in order for them to travel freely, they have to get our government's permission. They have to let the government look at their social media. They have to be vetted and approved, and if you don't have government's permission, you can't do things that, as a free, beautiful, independent human being, you have a basic right to do. And about this appeal to American exceptionalism, America is exceptional. And it's exceptional because of its history, because of how it was founded, because of how people came together and said, we are going to stand up against tyranny. We are going to stand up to unjust authority. We are going to disobey. And when the government passes an unjust law, you have a duty to resist it as someone who believes in ethics, morals, and moving humanity forward towards freedom. Now, from those who want you to be afraid and support more government, because you need to be afraid of this and afraid of that, and we're going to protect you like no one else can, it might sound shocking, but despite all of the fear-mongering, we are living in the most peaceful times in human history. And this is a beautiful thing to celebrate, that you are less likely today than at any point in human history to be subject to violence at the hands of another human being. We are becoming more ethical with time. This is the progress of humanity towards a free society. And we have raised our standard of ethics so much that now all we do is make this little exception for government. Don't hit, don't steal, don't kill, unless you're a cop or an IRS agent or a soldier. No, those are universal ethical standards, and freedom of movement needs to be respected if we want to build a free society, if we want to respect the individual rights of people all over the world, if we want to see the free market flourish, if we want to see people be prosperous